Welcome to another podcast of Mad in Love. I'm Dr. David Hawkins from the Marriage Recovery Center and the Emotional Abuse Institute. We are back with my colleague, Jonathan Glover, and my producer, Katie Buckley. Welcome, both of you. And we're going to break down some of the stories, always kind of exciting and a little scary, break down some of the stories that are shared on Reddit. So anyway, welcome back.
This one is posted by Grizzati. How to handle an NPD stepdad. As a 17-year-old girl, how do I deal with an emotionally abusive stepdad? It's been around since I was 1. He was also abusive to my mother and to my older siblings. Please give me tips. Writing this 30 minutes after he was telling my mom she'd be a stripper if it wasn't for him, yelling at her for decorating for Christmas.
Oh my goodness.
Yelling at me for saying that I'm fat and lazy. I just got home from a 9-hour shift, I'd like to add. He does this all the time. He's a narcissist and an alcoholic. Those two don't mix well. He always makes sure we feel powerless and awful about ourselves. He makes me want to die. I just need tips on how to survive in a household like this. And before you ask, I don't know why my mom stays with him. She's trying to get away, actually. She's applied for assisted living. Everything, the house, the cars, everything is in his name. So when he kicks us out, there won't be any legal problems or trouble. He's kicked us out about 7 times just this year. Please help. How do I not cave into his NPD?
Oh my goodness. I mean, that whole story gives me pause, and it really hits me. And I think, gosh, anything I say, I'll throw out some ideas, but this is overwhelming. And there's a lot of people in a relationship, in a marriage, that it's overwhelming. This is heartbreaking, heart-rending, heart-wrenching stuff. So good for her. She's already taken the first step, and that is that she can see some of the things that are happening. And I think clarity is a fabulous tool when we can see that this is bad behavior, this is abusive, this is harmful, and it's harming me, it's harming my siblings, it's harming my mother, and it's dangerous, and it's terribly harmful. So number 1 is bringing clarity to the situation, and she already has that. Number 2, I mean, she's 17, so she's beginning to create a world outside of this very, very troubled family, troubled stepfather. So I would presume, and I would encourage her to do even more, creating her own life and recovering, getting herself into, I hope she's in counseling so that she's able to tell her story, have her story affirmed and acknowledged, and beginning the practice of setting up a new life outside of this home. She's got disappointment with her mother and certainly with this man, this horrible behavior. There's not much she's going to do to impact this terribly bad behavior, but she can set up her own life away from it and then get even more perspective and begin her healing journey. So those are kind of the quick thoughts that come to me. Jonathan, any similar or different reactions here?
Yeah, I mean, narcissistic, I don't know. Is this guy abusive? Yes, horribly abusive. And the best thing to do, really the only thing to do, because as you said, she's not going to be able to influence her mom's relationship with this guy, perhaps. I mean, yes,
No.
talk to your mom. But the best, at 17, I think the best thing that you can do with an abusive person, an abusive relationship, is get distance as best as possible. And if that means staying over your best friend's house 5 nights a week, don't make waves. Don't make it like you're running away kind of thing, because then whatever happens legally might happen. But get as much distance as possible and plan for what you're going to do on your 18th birthday, and then get out. If this is a younger kid who doesn't have 18th birthday right around the corner, I'd say talk to as many other people as possible. Talk to teachers, school counselors, your therapist, your doctor, tell everybody that this guy's abusive and it's affecting you emotionally and probably physically as well. The reason why kids don't do that is because of fear of retaliation, and it's not just a fear; it's reality. When an abusive parent finds out that a child has been talking about them, it doesn't go well. There are lots of sometimes passive aggressive and sometimes directly aggressive punitive punishments that come in retaliation. This is reality. There's not a lot that a child this age can do without at least one of their parents on board and helping them out. That's what the parent's job is to protect that kid.
I want to ask you a question, Jonathan. I might even disagree with you a little bit here. If narcissism is profound selfishness, if narcissism is profound emotional immaturity, if narcissism is power and control to diminish another, why wouldn't we say this horribly alcoholic, abusive man, why wouldn't you say, you said narcissism? I'm not sure. What I would say this is the definition of narcissism. But why would you not say that?
I think for me, if I'm working with the kid, it's more important to highlight the effects on the child and to just say what is the abusive behavior, what does it look like, what does it sound like,
Sure.
And also if I'm working with him and he actually wants to change, then we're getting into kind of similarly what is it that's causing the problems. It's the alcohol, it's the addiction, and it's the abuse and the abusive behavior. So let's get straight to naming what those things are. And as far as categorizing him, unless he's diagnosable, I don't know if categorizing him is going to be very fruitful other than to just piss him off.
Would you agree with me that narcissism, I'm just saying this for people to kind of understand, it really helps understand what are we dealing with here. And by the way, let's remind ourselves, this man, we'll take her at her word, he's an alcoholic. So he's got an addiction going. So he can't be, Scripture talks about being sober-minded. He ain't sober-minded in any way, shape, or form. But do you agree with me that when we see narcissism, we often see attempts to diminish another person and their self-esteem and their value? We often see profound emotional immaturity. We often see profound selfishness and literally an unawareness of otherness. Like, no, I'm going to run the world the way I want to run the world, and that's the way the world, this little world of mine, this little empire of mine is mine, and doggone it, everybody else better fall in step. Right. Do you agree with all of those?
Yeah, and it's profound. It's immaturity. It's lack of distress tolerance. They can't handle very much, and they externalize constantly. There's no reflection, and it's always externalized. It's a demand for other people to change so that they get what they want and they are comfortable. It doesn't. Those behaviors, narcissism, it doesn't work in intimate relationships except for the narcissist.
Does this girl? Do you think the conversation could be had for an intervention with this man, or is she best to just like get out, get away, get your own life, or could she? Not should she, but could she have a conversation with mom about this guy? This is horribly bad behavior, Mom. Can we talk about calling Jonathan Glover and walking us through an intervention?
Starting from the daughter, it's all backwards.
You can tell me no.
Yeah, I mean, talking to mom and getting her on board, that's fine, but there's a lot of this parentification and the child taking on the responsibility of the mother. That's backwards. The mother needs to be the one who is saying, I've had enough. This is not okay, and it needs to change. And as far as intervention, sure, I would talk to her about that, but I don't know if the daughter has a lot of leverage alone with this stepdad.
I completely agree, but I want to go off on yet another topic here. This is not unusual it's not
No.
unusual for me to see
Yeah.
an adolescent have greater clarity into the horrific dysfunction of a family. Somehow, I'm not sure how it occurs, but somehow the kids are able to kind of watch and see, like, this is really screwed up. And the 17-year-old, I hear this story all the time. I have more clarity than my mom or dad seem to have in the. Do you see that too? Where somehow there's a greater clarity, there's a greater emotional health in the
Yeah.
child, and you're right, it's parentification. This shouldn't occur, but it does.
Right.
So is that a thing where children sometimes have greater clarity and understanding and emotional health than even the parents?
Yeah, they're not caught up in the codependency dynamics as much. So the emotional connection and the manipulation that occurs with the codependency isn't there with the children, who are usually oftentimes they're used in a manipulative and a controlling. They're used in that way, but it's for their spouse. So the children are just used as this, and oftentimes there is not that, like we were talking about earlier, that intermittent reward. My guess is this stepdad is not like, this is how he is every fourth day. This is how he is with this kid all the time. So
Absolutely.
The only conclusion is, man, this guy's abusive. And you're correct, he is.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about a sick system before, but this is it. This is where the family system is really unhealthy, and I agree with you. I think the bottom line is get out, get away, and don't. I talk a lot about emotional quicksand. So this girl, don't roll up your sleeve thinking that you can go in and have an impact here.
And mom might know this. She might know, he's abusive and I need to get out, but there's a lot more wrapped up in it. In fact, she's already explained this to the daughter. Sometimes there's emotional connection. Sometimes there's a financial need. There's other things that are wrapped up in it. I'm sorry, I fault mom for explaining this as an excuse to the daughter of like, oh, well, I have to stay because I've tried this, but it won't work. This thing won't work. And that is going to negatively impact her relationship with her daughter long term, because she's
Agreed.
Not emphasizing the reality that, yes, this guy is abusive. And she's also not attending to the effects on her daughter, or at least not in a full way from what we're hearing.
Yep, totally agree. Katie?
So
you have
one
a
of
take
the
on
things,
this? Yeah.
well, I have a question actually. I want to explore it a little, like one step after this. A lot of times I hear people on the phones tell me that they came from a family where there was an NPD mom or dad, and they end up being married to someone who's also an NPD. So what could this girl do, understanding that her stepdad, who's been around since she's 1, so she's grown up with this type of toxicity, what could she do in her adulthood to avoid repeating that family dynamic for herself?
She has to get into therapy. She has to be in therapy with a good trauma clinician. By the way, Jonathan Glover is such. But anyway, being in with a really good trauma specialist, probably for a long time, to really differentiate and understand, how have I been impacted? That's a question she's got to ask again and again and again. How has this impacted me? Let me become even more self-aware. And then as she heals from that and really goes through a healing process, she'll be able to step back and then be able to make better and better and better choices. Jonathan, what do you're a specialist here. What does she do? It's a great question, Katie. What does she do to guard against? Because the natural inclination, we repeat what we know. The brain actually likes is attracted to what we know. So our brain is working kind of like, I know this. I'll gravitate toward it. What do you
Right.
think,
And
Jonathan?
that we repeat what we know is, we do know that is true. And I think a lot of times what we think is that somehow this is a 1-for-1, that since she's around this abusive stepfather, she will then turn into an abusive parent as well. And I think it's going to be really important to look at how her relationship with her mother has progressed over time, and the role reversal and the parentification and the over functioning or protecting her mother, or in some way perhaps enabling those dynamics. And so that seeing her mother as a victim instead of a competent adult who should be setting boundaries is also problematic, because that sets up for another type of codependency.
Hey, Jonathan, I'm aware that we've used the word parentification a couple of times. Can you give a quick thumbnail description of that for those that might not have heard this term before?
Sure. Parentification occurs in parent-child relationships where the parent, for whatever reason, is not performing their duties as they should be performing them, and the child then steps into, because those duties are not being performed, the child steps into the role of what should be the parent in order to take care of certain things. And this is very broad. So, for example, the child taking care of their own emotional needs, especially at a young age, that's a parent's job to help the child regulate. But if that child learns that the parent is unable to help them regulate, for, like I said, for whatever reason, this could be chronic illness, this could be addiction, this could be abuse, trauma, witnessing domestic violence. There's all sorts of reasons why this occurs. Personality disorders is another big one, but it's the child is stepping into a role of taking care of things that really they are not capable of at their age, and they should not be in that position. But they also recognize that there's a need, there's this hole in the family system, and they feel compelled to step into that role. Or
Thank you.
Sometimes they're actually told, this is what you need to do. You need to look after your little sister. You need to take care of this thing. Or it's an implied, the mother, I can't do this, and so I need you to help out, or I need you to keep quiet about. It's such a broad term, but that's generally speaking what that describes.
Well, heavy stuff. This is Katie. You've brought, not surprisingly, you brought heavy stories with no simple, easy answer, but there are answers. There we can gain clarity, and with clarity, we can make good choices about a good path forward. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I want to thank you so much, Jonathan, for being with us again today. It's been, as always, lively. Listeners, as always, if any of this resonates with you, please know that we are available to help. These are complex situations, and we don't provide simple answers, but we will help you find a good path forward. You can reach out to us by visiting www.marriagerecoverycenter.com to learn more about what we do, and you can find that information in our show description. If you've enjoyed today's show podcast, please give it a 5-star rating and be sure to subscribe to our channel to be notified of new episodes. And as always, we want to thank all of you for tuning in, and we will talk to you again soon. Take care and God bless.